a warning?
There ain't nothing to worry about.
I'm worried that you work in an office, have children, celebrate wedding anniversaries. The world of heterosexual is a sick and boring life.
MGM presents Clash of the Titans. Join the warrior Perseus on his odyssey through a magical world of wonders. Meet Andromeda, the princess he loves. Pegasus, his magnificent winged stallion. Upo, the mechanical owl. The evil Calibos. Medusa, the Stygian Witches. And the most terrifying monster of all. Clash of the Titans. Rated PG.
Welcome back to the show, everyone.
Welcome back.
Scott.
Pete, I think I've had this movie on our schedule for probably about a year and a half.
I've had this movie on my brain since I was a very small child.
I'm glad that we finally got to it.
I am glad we finally got to it. This movie means a lot to me. I hope you know this. Listeners, my name is Pete.
And I'm Scott, and these are the movies that made us gay. Our good friend Darren. I mean, OG guest Darren. I think that you're like our second guest ever on the show, and you were back.
Welcome back to the show.
Oh, boys. Glad to be back. Last on, I believe, for Anti-Mame. Can you believe that?
Oh, my God.
The Anti-Mame episodes feels like
A long time ago.
300 episodes ago, but I mean, it wasn't all that long ago.
I mean, close enough.
Mm-hmm.
Close enough.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Does the time go. It's always fun to be back.
Well, yeah, thank you for coming. This is going to be a fun movie. I'm glad you're here for this one. I think we all go back a long ways.
We watched The Clash of the Titans, directed by Desmond Davis and written by Beverly Cross, released June 12th, 1981. This was a co-production between the UK and America. It grossed around $41 million in North America, and it was the 11th highest grossing movie of that year in 1981. Do you know what other movies opened the day that this came out?
81.
Gosh.
And here's the thing about this movie is that when you just kind of watch this movie now, you're like, what year did this movie come out?
Right?
Like, it almost looks, okay, so filmed, I believe, in 1979, came out in 1981. I would argue almost looks like it's from the late 60s.
It does, because
Yep.
it's got that throwback because of the animation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the stop motion.
the
But,
stop motion.
released the same day as Raiders of the Lost Ark and History of the World
Holy
Part
shit.
1.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, History of the World Part 1 also, there's a big portion. The last act of the movie is all set in ancient Rome.
True.
Yeah.
So it's like they could kind of,
But I would
interact.
imagine that MGM probably didn't know that Raiders of the Lost Ark was probably going to eat it for lunch.
Right.
Kind of looks-wise with like where the industry was going. So you mentioned that Empire had already come out. Empire Strikes Back.
I believe Empire Strikes Back came out in 1980.
Yeah, just kind of interesting when you
So
just kind of look
probably
at
the beginning of the year,
look at
yeah.
the timeline of just Star Wars,
Right.
like
Well,
opened up the floodgates to all of these movies.
To these action adventure
Yeah.
movies are kind of back, right? But the thing about Clash of the Titans is, like we're saying, it could very easily be from the late 60s, early 70s, just because of the technology that they used in making the special effects. When movie making had come so far, they just were using these old stop motion systems that had been in play since the 30s, really, with
Yeah.
King Kong, But so is it just a matter of the budget being at a certain place, so their special effects are just not as sophisticated? I mean, I'm assuming these are the same producers as the people that did bring us Jason and the Argonauts and
Right.
Sinbad and the Seven Voyages of Sinbad and all those, which are really fun movies in their own right. But other than the fact that, there's Harry Hamlin, there's not really much to say, okay, yeah, this is a quote-unquote modern movie, right? But
I mean, yeah, Ray Harryhausen has like a producing credit on this movie, and
Sure.
Charles H. Sheeran, he did like Jason and the Argonauts and The Earth versus the Flying Saucers. So yeah,
oh shit.
Do you know if this was his last movie?
this was Ray's last.
It
movie.
was Ray's last
Yeah.
movie. Okay, I was going to say I don't
Yeah.
recall any movies that had that beautiful.
Yeah. Afterwards, I mean, it's so many people from special effects houses like Industrial Light and Magic kind of like grew up on Harryhausen like we all did, and so kind of got to get to know him and learn his techniques and all that. But if this was his last actual movie that he worked on, there's some special features. We purchased this movie. There's some interviews with him, and it's very interesting. I feel like he really still, even for this one, was hands-on doing all these effects like himself, which is kind of wild.
He said that he handed off Bubo to like one of his assistants, and that was kind of one of the few things that he wasn't directly hands-on with.
Okay, all right. Before we go any further, we do usually take this time at the beginning of the show to talk about our earliest memories with this movie. Darren, do you want to start off with with that?
So, okay, for me, I did not see it in the theater. I do know that. I did not see it in the theater. I must have seen it on cable or on syndication, TV. It was one of those movies that it would come on, and my mom would be like, Darren, Clash of the Titans is on. There's two movies I recall her doing that with, and they both came out the same year.
Okay.
This one and Mommy Dearest.
Oh, wow. Both 81.
She'd always be like, Darren, it's on, like legit, like, come in and let's watch this because we love this movie. Not the camp value, but just because we love this movie together.
I love that.
So Clash of the Titans, I remember watching a lot with her. It really, I think this came out, a year after Xanadu, which was the first podcast I did with you guys.
Yes.
Yep.
So definitely the era of me getting acquainted with Greek mythology, as a young man.
Right.
And I fell in love with these stories. Like after watching this movie, I got out the Time Life books, Greece, and learned about all the, the gods and the goddesses and all the stories. And it kind of took another life for me. But this movie really, I think even more than Xanadu, because Xanadu's kind of about Greek mythology, not really. This really kind of touched on those stories and those myths that until that point I had no knowledge of, and I loved it. So, and also, I'm going to say, being this movies that made us gay, a lot of people would say, oh, it's Harry Hamlin, you know what I mean? Like he's, in a toga the whole time. He's so hot. I'm going to be controversial here. Sure. It's really the women for me.
Oh,
I mean,
oh yeah, they're super fierce.
I mean, Maggie Smith, first exposure to Maggie Smith,
right?
I'm pretty sure. Ursula Andress, the witches, Andromeda, so lovely and beautiful and, gauzy dress, and and then Medusa, who's like the fiercest bitch of them all. I mean, all these different amazing women.
Yes.
That's what made me gay.
Oh, absolutely.
The actress who plays Andromeda is so pretty too.
Isn't she?
Judi Bowker, I think. Yeah, she's so pretty.
Judi Bowker, yeah.
Yep.
I also love the woman who plays Andromeda's mother, Cassiopeia.
Yes, we can't forget her.
Forgive. Forgive. That actress is her name is Siân Phillips.
Right.
She's a Welsh actress, and she is in the original Dune. David Lynch Dune. She is the Reverend Mother in that movie. Abomination. She's so good.
I think she's still. Is she still around? I think she's still with us.
Might be.
I feel like, I feel like I've seen her in some British sitcoms or Midsummer Murder. She pops up and stuff like that. So she's.
What's her character name again?
Cassiopeia.
Okay. She has 138 credits on IMDb.
Get it, girl. Get
so
it.
I'm sure you've seen her in plenty.
She's fantastic.
She was in Good Omens pretty recently. Mm-hmm. Wow, she did an episode of that. Great.
She might have been married to someone famous too. I feel like I don't know. I'll have to deep dive Wikipedia later.
Sure. I remember I did not see this in the theater either. But I feel like this was on heavy rotation here in Southern California. Mm-hmm. Our local channels.
Like 5.
Yes, Channel 5.
Yeah.
KTLA, movie for a Saturday afternoon.
Yep.
It was called Family Film Festival. Talked about this a lot. So Family Film Festival is on in the afternoon, on the weekends, and they're showing Pippi Longstocking with Inger Nilsson.
Yes.
From Sweden, dubbed into English. Right?
Always. Yeah.
They're showing, the Popeye live action movie, right? They're showing all these types of movies, and they would show Clash of the Titans every so often. And my sister and I remember my sister specifically screaming from across the house, "It's on! Clash of the Titans is on! We got to come watch!" And we loved it. Yeah, and first of all, just the big heavy hitters, the big guns in this movie, Medusa, I was obsessed with. When he chops off her head and the body falls over and all the goo comes out of her neck.
Oh, God.
And we're like,
what is that? What is that? I'm like, is that ketchup?
Yes, we thought it was ketchup. And we're small kids. I'm like 6. My sister's like 9, and we're just like running around
But did
screaming.
it feel violent to you? I mean, it did. It was kind of violent. But I don't know. My mom didn't have a problem with me watching it.
And I think because it was like, it's Greek mythology.
Yeah.
So this is things that like it's kind of educational.
Totally right. Yeah.
I was reading that originally the censors in the UK weren't going to let them have him cut off Medusa's head, and they were going to stage it that he throws his shield at her. And I think that this
knocks her over?
Yeah, and like knocks her over or something. I don't know. And maybe it was supposed to happen off camera. And I think that Harry Hamlin like had to really put his foot down.
Okay.
Of that, like, no, that's not how we're going to be doing this.
Okay.
So I know that it was like up for like consideration that they weren't going to have him
Gotta take her
cut
head
Medusa's
off.
head off. But I mean,
So, okay, we'll get into a little bit of the mythology later on. We're not going to get that deep into it. But, I mean, there's some stuff in here that doesn't have any business in Greek mythology whatsoever. No. But there is some stuff that tracks Perseus and Medusa being one of them. And that's like a real story.
Correct.
Well,
I want to talk about when I first watched this.
Right. Real quick, I just want to talk about, we would also freak out and run around the room screaming with the witches. We were obsessed with the witches, and my sister and I would just scream, "Give me the eye!" Just like back and forth to each other as little kids, And I loved it. And there, I mean, we would watch the televised movie for a Saturday afternoon version, and I think it was probably way later on that I watched it, and I was like, "There's some nudity in this movie."
There is.
Right off the bat, Perseus' mother is just like frolicking on the beach, like wowzers. But yeah, as kids, we were very, very fascinated and enamored with this movie, and we never owned it, but it was on enough.
Yeah, we didn't own it either.
It was on enough.
Yeah.
So I remember kind of first getting introduced to Greek mythology that Disney's Hercules came out when I was in the 6th grade.
Oh my goodness!
So I mean, I am considerably younger than both of you.
Really old.
So
right
make you feel really old. So I remember being really into Disney's Hercules, but I remember watching Clash of the Titans when I went over just to visit my dad on the weekends. This is definitely Pete has the kids on the weekends, and you're going to be watching whatever is just on basic cable on a Friday night. Right. And I think that this is a movie that probably was on any Turner networks a lot, TBS, TNT, in the evening. Yeah, that I remember watching this with my dad on like TNT or something on like a Friday night.
Yeah, yeah, love it. And I mean, so you had that kind of background of that Disney's Hercules.
Yes,
and I feel like in the 90s there was kind of a Greek mythology kind of boom with like the live action shows, like that was like Xena and
there was
Hercules
Xena and Hercules,
sure. So it was just kind of like in the
I
air.
would kind of dip in and out of Xena and Hercules. I mean, I think that's just one of those shows that you just catch it when it's just on a Saturday afternoon. So I definitely remember somebody like Lucy Lawless and Xena.
Right.
But I remember just kind of recognizing all of the Disney characters in a movie like this, and I thought that was really cool.
Oh, okay, sure. Because they did have the witches.
They did have the witches.
There were the fates in that.
The fates in that, I mean, we were also talking about, like, Titans, like Clash of the Titans in the name. I mean, maybe you can elaborate on this. What exactly is the definition of a Titan in Greek mythology?
I think I know this, Peter. Do you know this? I want to say that the Titans, it doesn't really make sense for the movie because honestly, I think the Titans predated the Olympians, like Zeus and Hera and all of them. I'm pretty sure that those are the parents or the closest ancestor to the gods and goddesses that are on Mount Olympus. So that was a whole different chapter in Greek mythology. But for some reason, I think I kind of want to say they refer to the Kraken as a Titan. I don't know if he is a Titan.
Right. No.
Do they clash? I don't know. It kind of exists as the title.
Right.
In title only.
Yeah. I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
So the thing is the Kraken, the name Kraken is comes from Norse mythology.
And which is kind of cool that blending just kind of mythologies too.
So
interesting.
in Greek mythology, there is like a sea creature that's like they're like sea monster, but it's called Thetis, and it's Cetus, and the constellation of Cetus is a whale.
Okay.
Right. And a kraken, as we kind of think about it in like Norse and Scandinavian mythology terms, typically is like a giant squid. So they kind of just took that name.
And I think that's something that they did in the 2010 remake, too. Because I think that it kind of looks more like a squid.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And also, I think there is something going on with Perseus and Thetis in mythology, but yeah. So it gets a little gray. And then which titans are clashing in this movie? Is it the Kraken and Medusa?
Yeah, I feel like they're the most.
And Medusa's a gorgon?
Yeah, but she's not a titan.
She's not a titan?
But the witches, I think, at one point say, there's something about the titans, and I can't remember exactly what she's.
Titan against titan.
Yeah, which I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But I think that's as loose as it gets,
Sure.
Sure.
I mean, it's been a few years since I've seen the Disney movie, but I think that how they do the titans in the Disney movie.
I think they kind of have it.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, you're kind of.
And like how you mentioned of that, they sort of predate the gods.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's kind of how they do it in that movie too.
Yeah, yeah. I enjoy the depiction of the Olympians in this.
Yes.
Just Laurence Olivier with those like lasers coming out from behind him. So fucking cool. I mean, for 1980, 1981, like this is a cool effect, right?
Like, where do they sleep? Because they're all just kind of standing. They're always on court, like just standing with columns and clouds.
Do you even sleep on Mount Olympus?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on Earth.
Wandering around. Yeah.
Poor Ursula Andress. I mean, I'm sure that when she signed on to this movie, she would assume that I'm going to have at least 10 lines in this movie.
She's Aphrodite. She's the goddess of love. Who else? Who better than Ursula Andress? Right.
One line.
Yep. One line. Well, I wonder if any of her stuff was cut, or they told her more. I mean, they talk about stuff that she's done, like she's responsible for Medusa, and all these things, but we never see her do anything.
So we noticed of how this movie is cut together with some of the VO that there is dialogue with Laurence Olivier and Maggie Smith that they put the VO over the dialogue,
which is they cut a montage together. And within the montage, there are shots of them that look like...
So, like, clearly they got more thinking that they were going to cut more scenes together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think definitely this is the first time I was ever kind of introduced to Maggie Smith. And seeing that 50-foot tall statue that looks like her. And they're using some, like, old-school Disneyland... like front projector effects.
Full on.
Haunted Mansion, like Grim Grinning Ghosts, like.
Yep.
But it works. Like it.
Oh, it's great. I am here for it.
When the head falls off and the eyes open up and you're just like, oh shit.
Hear me, vain and foolish mortal woman. You dare compare your daughter's beauty to mine, and in my own sacred sanctuary. You will repent your boast. And the cruel injury you have inflicted on my son, Calabos.
Forgive.
In 30 days, on the eve of the longest day of the year, your daughter Andromeda must be taken to the sacrificial rock at the edge of the sea, there bound and chained to the stone. She must be unknown to man, a virgin, a sacrifice suitable for the Kraken. She must be delivered to the Kraken at the setting of the sun, or else the Kraken will destroy all Joppa and everyone within the city. For the insult you have done to me and the cruel injury inflicted on my son, I demand the life of Andromeda. In 30 days.
That was cool. Like, I don't know.
But one of my favorite parts of that scene when the head falls off is Burgess Meredith, like... I think that's who it is, right?
It's Burgess Meredith.
So he there's that earthquake. He grabs the two young cute girls. He's like, "Come on with me." I'm like, "Dirty old man."
I'll protect you.
I'll even remember that as a kid. I'm like, "What is he doing?" It's great. Anyway.
Yeah. No.
Side note there.
The entire structure is falling down. He's like, "I'll shield you.
I'll take the two hotties." Yeah.
You maidens.
So funny.
Well, we probably have to talk about. I mean, since we are getting into Maggie Smith, we should probably mention that she was married to Beverly Cross.
Yes, I just learned that recently.
And Beverly Cross,
screenwriter,
and I think that he was just really into mythology. And I think that he may have written some essays or maybe even books on it. And he was just so into it that he wanted to do a narrative movie of Greek myths. And we kind of mentioned before that there's a lot of things that aren't quite in the Perseus story that he kind of cherry picked from other stories to make like a full narrative.
Yeah. Sure.
So this was kind of a big passion project for him, and he put Maggie.
Yeah, who I don't think
Yep.
it was a significant. I mean, I've looked a bit about her character because she doesn't really. That character doesn't show up with the other gods.
Right.
Correct.
Right,
Poseidon was the god of the ocean, but she's somehow connected to that somehow. And then I guess she's a nymph. That character is supposedly a nymph. So she is in mythology, but not to the degree with which she's portrayed. I think that was a fictionalized thing that he did to create this character for her.
Right, because they refer to her as goddess of the sea.
Yeah,
but you're right. We have Poseidon.
Poseidon.
There's never usually like a team. There usually one does one thing.
Like, all the other ones made sense. Athena and Aphrodite and Hera, they fit what I remember from the Time Life book. I'm like, there you are, great. I even think Prometheus is there at one point making fire or doing something. But yeah, I had to do a little dive on her, and I couldn't really find much about that particular Greek mythology character.
And also the character of her son, Calibos.
Correct.
Not a Greek mythology character at all.
Yeah.
Kind of closer to Caliban.
Yeah,
from
the
Tempest.
Yeah, he's kind of pannish, but more evil, devilish looking. But he's got that.
Because Caliban was kind of described as like monstery, but
I agree.
But also Caliban, cool character, right? Because it's in the wide shots, it's stop motion because he's like fully grotesque. But like in the close-ups, it's like a guy in the makeup. Like really cool.
But his transformation, I know we'll probably get to all the details, but it's so smart how they did that by taking the little statue, their little chess pieces that they use in the Colosseum, which I love. Was a great directorial screenwriting touch, whoever came up with that, and just the way they put that figure down, and then you watch him transform in shadow.
In the shadow, so cool,
so creepy.
Yeah, so great. The Perseus story at the very beginning, when we just kind of get Perseus and his mother Danae, I believe, that is one of the many women that Zeus would come down to Earth and seduce these ladies, right, in all of his different forms, and she bears an offspring, and he's a demigod, and it's Perseus, right? So he's half human, half Olympian god, right? So I think this is pretty much kind of in the storyline.
Yeah. Yes.
And then he gets the whole thing about him getting banished to this island. It's when you're watching it, you're just kind of like, it's a vibe. You just kind of have to let this movie wash over you.
You just have to go along with the ride. Yeah.
Because so many cities are just like being destroyed by waves and sea creatures and all that.
And that was the first one. His grandfather's I don't remember the name of it.
Perseus's Argos.
Is it Argos? Yeah.
I think it's Argos that gets destroyed because Zeus is mad that the king of Argos banished Danae.
Well, she got pregnant, so had a baby. She had a baby, so he's like, you got to go. Puts her in the box.
Throws her in a box.
Sends her adrift.
Into the sea.
With the baby.
Yeah.
And then,
Wild.
And then I guess Poseidon and Zeus find her safe passage to an island, and that's where they run amok like Blue Lagoon.
Yeah, nudists.
Yep. Walking naked down the beach.
Riding horses.
As you do. There's a shot as Perseus is aging on the beach. They do a little montage. And there's a shot of him, riding this horse on the beach, doing all these tricks, jumping off the side of the horse, and the horse is running and jumping. And it is clearly a stunt double.
You're saying that's not Harry Hamlin?
The stunt double's wearing this wig.
It's not Harry Hamlin. Harry Hamlin, I'm looking at Harry Hamlin's Wikipedia right now. Born in Pasadena. Went to Flint Ridge.
How about that?
Went to Flint Ridge Preparatory School.
Okay.
I love him even more.
Rena's from SoCal too. Rena's from like Marina Del Rey or something. That's very interesting.
I did not know that he was born in Pasadena and grew up here. Very interesting.
Huh.
Yep.
Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit about Harry Hamlin because is this before the gay movie that he did?
It's the year before. Making Love. Yeah.
Okay. And so the story goes that Making Love kind of derailed his career, right? I think that's kind of or maybe that's how he would.
It
tell
was
it.
difficult, for him for sure.
Yeah,
it's controversial.
I've never seen Making Love.
Just clips.
Yeah.
He did Summer Lovers too, didn't he? Daryl Hannah, was he in that, or am I thinking of somebody else? I feel like he was in a lot of those like romantic, like Menage a Trois movies in the early early 80s.
Sure. And then he kind of hit it with
King of the Mountain was also his big debut in 1981, the year that he did Clash of the Titans.
Okay. But he makes this movie called Making Love in 1982. He plays against Michael Ontkean from Twin Peaks. And they play gay lovers in this movie. And
Kate Jackson.
Kate Jackson from Charlie's Angels is in it as well. It is directed by Arthur Hiller, and it was very controversial for him to play a gay man in this movie. And I mean, I think his trajectory before this was like really, really high, doing movies, and then it kind of, his career. I guess the story goes that his career never really.
Well, he shifted to LA Law.
He shifted to television.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So he gets LA Law in 86. Okay. So that's only 4 years later. Mm-hmm. That's not too bad of a slump because I feel like he was one of the main leads on LA Law. That show lasted 7 or 8 seasons, so that was a pretty good gig.
Mm-hmm. I always know Harry Hamlin, that listeners, if you watch Veronica Mars, he is Aaron Eccles, and his wife on the show is Lisa.
Okay, Lisa
it was
Rinna,
like
his real life wife.
His real life wife, yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and an upcoming project, In the Kitchen with Harry Hamlin, a cooking show with a unique combination of cooking, dinner party, and documentary, all with a dash of comedy and feels along the way. And it looks to be that it's shot at their home.
Well, it's always a big story point with him on Real Housewives that he's a good cook.
That's true. Yeah. Anytime Lisa hosts something,
wasn't there a whole drama with like soup and like Garcelle?
It was his spaghetti sauce.
It was his spaghetti sauce. That's right.
Right, Scott.
Garcelle did not text him
Real
like,
Housewives
"Thank you."
Of Beverly Hills fans.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Hamlin gave everyone some spaghetti sauce to go after they all loved it so much at a dinner party that they threw. And I think, was it Garcelle or Sutton?
I think it's Garcelle.
Didn't say thank you. Oh, well. But, I mean, Harry's doing great.
I remember him on Mad Men, too.
Oh, yeah.
He was on Mad Men?
He had a big arc on Mad Men.
He did.
Yep.
Yeah.
He looks great.
I was going to say, he looks great still
Seems
to this
like a nice
day.
guy. Seen him in interviews.
I mean, hooked up with Ursula Andress and had a kid during the production.
Hey, now.
All right. Okay. Yep.
So
the old days.
So that's the interesting thing is that, like you said, Scott, I always forget that this movie was shot in, 78?
79.
79?
Yep.
Because the movie is released in 1981, but his and Ursula Andress' son is born in 1980, right?
I think 81.
No, I think the son was born in 80. I thought, but he could be 81. But I mean, the timeline is a little crazy just because.
Did they meet on the set?
They did.
They did. Okay.
They did.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Seeing on Wikipedia, they dated from 79 to 83.
Okay.
So during the production of the movie, and then about 2 years after the release of it.
And where is Ursula Andress from? She is
Swedish.
She's
Swiss. Yep.
She's Swiss. Mm-hmm. Switzerland.
Yep.
Okay.
Swedish or Swiss?
So one or the other. One of the two. They're interchangeable.
Okay. Swiss mother and a German father. Interesting. Okay. And I think that they had to leave Switzerland for political reasons.
As you would.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, work. I enjoy Harry Hamlin's hair in this movie. It's just like there are scenes where it is
those shots of him on the beach just like lounging on the rocks.
Well, those shots are great, but there are some shots where it's so coiffed. Like he is sitting like underneath the like hair dryer machine. Like
I wonder how many people got perms after seeing this movie. They're like, I want that hair.
That specific hair. I mean, and that's the thing. Right after this, we start getting, Tom Hanks comes on the scene in Bosom Buddies. He's got that kind of like that like helmet hair. We have Larry on Three's Company, like David Hasselhoff. They all have this like football helmet,
dark curly, full head of hair. Yeah,
Travolta kind of had it too.
He kind of had it for a bit,
a little bit
during the Welcome Back, Kotter. Well, yeah,
but Harry owns it. It's his.
Yeah.
That is his.
Yeah. It really is, especially when he is, he's riding on horses and he's just like they're out in the desert somewhere, just all this wind flowing through it. It looks great. He looks so good. and I definitely, being that I have like kind of like wavy hair myself, I was always like, why doesn't it look like that? It never looks like that. But I just don't have the rollers. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the Olympians. All right, we should talk about Cassiopeia and Andromeda and this whole storyline, because this is where it starts getting like, a little sexy. Mm-hmm. It starts. This is where
it takes a turn.
It takes a turn. But is it a thing that? Okay, she is betrothed to Maggie Smith's son Calibos.
When he's not a monster.
Before he got turned into a monster.
Yep.
But
he's
Calibos
punished by Zeus.
Right. He's a dirtbag. He killed all the like
horses,
the
Pegasuses. Yeah. The Pegasus.
The Pegasus.
Okay, sure.
The Pegasus.
Yeah. And so Zeus
he killed all of them except the one.
Except for the one.
Except the Pegasus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And so Zeus like curses him to be like ugly and to go live in the
and transforms him in front of his mother.
Yes, before her very eyes.
Laurence Olivier in this movie of that. I think that Maggie Smith just had some favors of like, hey, Laurence,
like,
I know that
Larry,
I know that you are very ill right now.
Bev wrote this movie, and I just really need you to play the god of them all.
We can try to block everything that you're sitting for most of this movie, but
we'll put you on a throne. It'll be fine. You'll be great.
But I think that Laurence Olivier was kind of very sick when he made this movie.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, you wouldn't know, and like you said, he does get to just be sitting on a throne.
He commands. Kind of like, he's scary at some points, then he's sassy at some points, and then he's very wise and then affectionate too. He's a dad. You know what I mean? Like you watch him change throughout the movie depending on which character he's manipulating or wanting to move along his along the path, and it's kind of fun to watch. You know,
even as a kid, when I would watch this and see the opening credits, and I would see that name, Laurence Olivier, and not having seen any Laurence Olivier movies, but just kind of understanding.
He's a big deal.
That he's a big deal.
It's a big deal that he's in this movie.
Actor-wise.
Yep.
Like, he's like a big famous like actor. Mm-hmm. He's the real deal. So that kind of gave this movie
gave it some
credibility.
I mean, I guess that it's like the George Lucas move of putting Alec Guinness in the first Star Wars movie.
Sure.
Of that, this is a genre movie, but we're going to give it some gravitas.
Right.
Well, it has a bit of an old Hollywood feel.
Yep.
Exactly.
I
it's not that I think of Laurence Olivier as like an old Hollywood actor. I think of him as more of a theater actor, a British actor. Yeah. I don't think of him as much of in that sense, but he does add this sense of academia or
and I could
dramaturgy. Sure. There's something about Laurence Olivier appearing in a Greek mythology film that just
Zeus
just sounds right.
Yeah.
It works.
It's interesting when they have the scenes with the Olympians. It's usually him and all women, right? It's
usually him.
It's Aphrodite. It's Athena.
Claire Bloom is Hera.
It's Hera.
Yep.
And then Maggie Smith. And I love that scene where he kind of he does something and then he leaves and they're all just there without him. And then they just have this moment where
dishing.
Yeah.
They're like. I mean, poor Hera. I mean, he's basically impregnated this woman who's this is his son, and she's watching this all go down, and she's like, okay, so this is how it's gonna go. All right.
Yeah, looking at Maggie Smith like, you're mad about
you're mad.
What now?
I know. You're like, wait, okay, great, take it out, go girl. Yeah.
And then Maggie Smith says something about and he disguised himself as a cuttlefish.
Right.
And tried to ravage her.
Do I remember that? Yeah.
Classic Zeus.
Classic Zeus.
And what did you do? And she said, I turned myself into a shark.
So cute.
Oh my God.
I know, I love it. It's great.
Yeah, but it's just such a funny scene where they just kind of get together. But again, Ursula Andress just kind of standing there in the back hi.
It's like she's waiting to jump in with their lines, and they keep stepping on her lines.
Right. I did the math. I believe Ursula Andress was 42.
She looks great.
Yeah, when she made this.
Crazy. I mean, good for her for snagging that one. For snagging Harry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, so another thing is we were saying that this was kind of our first introduction really to Maggie Smith. And I think for a generation of people,
me,
Scott, a lot of people, that Hook was really their Hook and
only
Sister Act.
10 years
right,
later,
of course.
like Hook and Sister Act.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
And Hook is first, right? Hook is 90.
Hook is 91. I believe Sister Act. I can't remember if Sister Act's 91 or 92.
Right. But
Yeah,
the
might
other,
be 92.
But the other thing is that for a lot of that generation of kids, in Hook, she's playing like 99.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she was maybe 50. You know,
50s, yeah.
And so they aged her up. They did the old lady makeup. She's in the full granny drag. But I think for so many kids, you're just like, well, that's what Maggie Smith looks like.
Totally.
You know,
Well, to her parents, she already had a whole,
right.
catalog of films that they had seen of her,
Yeah.
and our grandparents. I mean, she had been around for a while. She did
Right.
a lot of substantial movies. She had won an Academy Award.
I was going to say, when
you
did she
know.
win her Oscar? The
Two
50s?
supporting actress Oscars.
Yeah.
Yep.
She won lead, didn't she, for
Oh, sure.
the Miss Jean Brody?
Prima Jean
Prima
Brody.
The Prime
yeah,
Minister
and I
Brody.
think California Suite was she in? I think, and Neil Simon, and then oh my gosh, I have not seen this movie, but we might have to watch this. Murder by Death. It's a
We've
spoof.
seen
I've
it.
seen Murder by Death.
Okay, but I
Yeah.
just seen a clip of her talking
It's
about
wild.
Elsa Lancaster's character, and she plays that like Nick and Nora character.
Yes.
And she's just so Maggie Smith. She's
Yeah.
just delicious.
Maggie Smith has 2 Oscars. She has one moment here. It's about to load.
Yeah, Murder by Death is wild, first of all.
She has 2 Oscars.
Truman Capote.
Yes.
One for lead and the other for supporting. California Suite. She has
California
the supporting
Suite,
actress Oscar.
Okay.
Yep.
But the other thing is, so many kids get introduced to her as Granny Wendy and Hook,
Right.
99-year-old woman, great makeup. She's playing it like an old lady, nonagenarian. She's selling it, right? So for a lot of kids, they just kind of thought she was that old, right?
And then in Sister Act,
And
she's in a
Sister Act,
habit for the entire movie,
She's a
so you
nun.
can't really
Yeah,
tell.
so you can't tell. So Maggie Smith has this thing for so many people of just like, has she just been in her 90s for the past 30 years?
It's true.
You know, because now you know, I mean, what was she in Downton Abbey? Yeah, she
Yeah,
was in
Downton Abbey, yeah.
I mean, she was in Gosford Park in 2002,
Right.
And that's what kind of brought back the Maggie Smith like Renaissance. It was like
Right.
Gosford Park and Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone of
course,
like
yeah.
old lady throwing shade that she would go on to play for
Right.
almost a decade.
But
Right.
just think
Yep.
about how she's been in front of so many different generations
Right.
and
Yep.
audiences.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know anybody who wouldn't know who she is.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
like every generation has some sort of Maggie Smith milestone. It's kind of cool.
No,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
very cool.
And like she has just such a distinctive speaking voice. Like you just kind of, she's so instantly recognizable to everybody.
I loved her as a kid. Like in this movie, I was just like, who is this woman? She's so cool.
She kind of has a almost a similar like Angela Lansbury vibe, you know, in that she's got
And
that
Judi Dench,
that
they all kind of,
pedigree,
yeah.
you know. But Maggie Smith just has those gigantic eyes that are just like, she's so striking. But yeah, I feel like in this movie she tries to throw in a little bit of comedy. She tries, you know, with like those scenes.
I think that
with
she
the other-
knows
with the other
exactly the type
gals.
of movie that she's in too.
Would
Yeah.
we call her the villain of the movie?
I think
A sympathetic villain?
I think like screenplay wise, yeah, I think she
Mm-hmm.
would be one of the antagonists because she gets the ball rolling. For
She
all
is
of
the
this stuff,
antagonist for sure.
you know?
Yeah.
Not me putting sexy Maggie Smith in a Google image search. I mean, young Maggie Smith can kind of get it.
She's very
like
pretty. She's
very
pretty,
striking.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. In the prime of Miss Jean Brody, she's probably in her 30s,
Prime.
maybe. In her prime, yes. I remember seeing that movie and thinking that she actually says the prime of Miss Jean Brody like 5 times in that movie. I'm in my prime. She says it a lot. But yeah, no, it's her character that transports Perseus from the beach of this lovely little private
Correct.
island right into the middle of, you know,
That's right. She drops him there.
she drops him there. She takes him out. You
What's
know,
the name of that town? It's like Jaffa. I can't remember. Keep the name straight. Anyway.
Yeah, and then it's also her doing when Andromeda is having like her coming out party.
Right.
And Cassiopeia is just like, my daughter, the most beautiful woman on earth, beautiful than even all the gods on Olympus. And that's when she's like, what did you say, bitch? In my house, no less, in my temple. See, that's the thing about when you read up about not only Greek mythology, but about like ancient Greece. And they'll talk about like, oh, the temple of like Athena or like a Athenium or something like that. These temples that were dedicated to these Greek gods, they refer to them as cults, right? And I think it's just, correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, it could just be like a historical, archaic kind of way of referring to people that followed, in a polytheistic, religion. But
like we're hitching our wagon to this one,
right? But I mean, they
with all these gods.
But they refer to like even like citizens of Sparta as like of that being a cult. They refer to like people who followed Athena and worshipped at her, temples as being a cult. So I think if they're in this temple to Thetis, to the Maggie Smith character, that they are like worshiping her, and it's like
giant statue right there.
This 50-foot tall statue.
And Maggie Smith's just waiting there on the other side, just like, come on, girl, say something. I gotta avenge my son, and I'm gonna get this little dick that took his hand. Like, say something shitty.
She's like, that is my pearl ring that you are trying to pawn here.
Because we have to go back, because the whole thing is Calibus was we said that courting Andromeda.
Yes.
Andromeda was repulsed by him.
Yes.
But he kept bringing her in a dream.
Oh my gosh.
To the dreams, where she goes off in this little tiny,
the little cage with the giant vulture.
The giant vulture, the scary vulture.
The scary vulture takes her to Calibus land, the swamps, where she's given a riddle.
Yes.
In which a suitor, prospective suitor, has to solve in order to win her hand, and then many are unsuccessful. They are burned at the stake if they lose. Perseus follows because of a well, should we talk about all that?
I mean, it's okay.
There's a magic helmet. He he disappears. He gets the clue. He finds out what it is. He wins her hand.
He cheats.
He totally cheats. He totally cheats with the help of Zeus.
Also, this riddle is completely rigged.
Yeah.
There's no way anybody could guess that.
Yeah.
Unless you cheat.
Yeah.
Because he had to see it was the ring on Calibus's hand and all that stuff.
And he throws the hand at him. He's like, you don't believe me? Here it is. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's some shots of Perseus and Calibus fighting, and it is a stop motion puppet fighting Harry Hamlin.
Yep.
In the
swamp. Why couldn't they have the actor? Like, he's in full outfit. Why do we have to switch gears to...
The tail, maybe?
I think that
the tail,
I think that reveal of him with the actor is kind of really effective, because when I revisit this movie, I sometimes forget that
it's a guy in a mask.
It's a guy in a mask.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit. Like, he's sitting right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
And he's got, like you said, he's got the Jerry curl.
Yeah, he has.
That's
right. He has a cool
the
Jerry,
little type pearl.
He has a cool
little
Jerry
type pearl.
curl going on.
Yeah.
This actor, Neil McCarthy, also just has such an interesting face.
Yeah.
He's got a mug.
He kind of has a mug on him, so it works really well with the makeup.
Mean mugging.
Because they kind of build his features around his features for the character design.
Face is wild. It's like very like devilish.
Like, you can exaggerate his crazy features even more.
Sure. I also love, and I forget it every time until I watch the movie, that in Calibus's like swamp, he's got like henchmen.
Totally.
Yeah.
They're like weird, like little cavemen
just hanging out,
wearing like animal skins, and they're all dirty. And it's like, oh, he's got henchmen down there. He's got like a whole thing. He's like ruling over this swamp with like an iron claw. Mm-hmm. And he has this huge pearl. There's 2 pearls on this ring.
Right.
It's very gaudy. But this ring is like a whole. It's part of the whole like riddle, and and Perseus chops off the entire hand to bring the ring back.
To show this is it.
Yep.
And so he wins her hand, and then that's when Cassiopeia throws some shade.
That's when she says it's at the engagement announcement.
Correct, and that's when the head comes off. The first head comes off, and comes to life, gives basically says that. Well, I mean. Should we just give away the journey here? This is where the hero's journey begins. Mm-hmm. Basically, if you have to sacrifice your daughter to the Kraken.
And we've got a ticking clock. We've got until like the solstice or something.
Yeah, so
30 days until like the longest
day of the
year.
days.
30 days. Yeah.
Now you're just like sounding like Bette Davis.
I know, maybe a little bit.
What a dumb. She would have been good in that role.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got a ticking clock. We've got we got to tie her to the sacrificial rock, and then we're going to release the Kraken, and
Game over.
He's going to eat her, I guess, even though the Kraken is like 200 feet tall. This is like eating she's like a pizza roll.
A little like Skittle.
Yeah.
She's like
Skittle.
She's like
a really pretty Skittle.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say peanut, but she's pretty.
Pretty peanut.
So when do we get the introduction to Bubo? Is it when they sort of they come up with the plan of that they have to go?
I think it's because they know that they have to. Zeus knows that he has to go on this journey now, and he's just like, well, he's never going to make it alone. So Athena, you got to give him
gifts. We need gifts. So he gets the helmet, he gets the shield, and he gets the sword.
Yeah,
and they're all placed around by the goddess's statue of who gave it to him, and then, but I think the owl. She would not give up her precious owl
because he tells Athena to give him
the real thing,
owl.
The real owl.
She's like,
hey, I'll fit him out. Yeah. And so she she doesn't craft it. They show it being made like
I think
clockwork,
Prometheus makes it,
but it cuts it back and it's
kind of interesting little notes about Bubo. That the name Bubo is the scientific term for the genus of eagle owls and horned owls, which is interesting because Bubo was modeled after a barn owl. Of that, I mean, I think that they just wanted a very classic owl
he
look.
Looks like an owl,
and that barn owl is they look like a storybook owl. Yeah.
And Bubo's like a cutesy name, but it's also tied into like the scientific
clever.
Owl class, so it is clever. But I don't know if it's just the design of the Bubo puppet, but he almost has like a little Caesar haircut.
Yeah,
like his little feathers are kind of like pushed forward.
He has a little 90s George Clooney haircut.
Yeah. But we were
for the kids. Definitely, it's all about.
We were obsessed.
So we were
as kids.
I liked him.
So we were talking about, and I would assume that this is a sensitive subject for Ray Harryhausen. Of that, was it the wild success of Star Wars and R2-D2? Of that, they felt like they needed to include a sidekick robot like this. And I think that Ray has even said, I've done like mock-ups of this character way before Star Wars, so I was like onto this type of kind of character in a movie like this way before George Lucas, and I kind of love.
And he makes squeals. He's very like noisy and mechanical. You're right. I didn't think about that before.
And like some of them can understand him, but we can't.
True.
Sounds like R2-D2. Yeah.
Yeah, but
good
I mean,
observation.
In a movie that's kind of aimed at kids, you know, there's usually like a little sidekick character in there. But the fact that there's a lot of analogies, like 1-to-1 with a kind of an R2-D2, so it does make sense. But I can see people like on the art team just being like, no, we already we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
but that one's up for debate. But I mean, it worked though. Like you were saying, as kids, my sister and I were
the character
obsessed.
of Bubo.
We loved it.
Yep.
Yeah, super cute. Love his little squeaks and beeps and chirps or whatever. His flying is the way his little wings flap. I mean, that's got to be difficult as all of stop motion animation seems insane to me.
A lot of patience.
Why you would devote your life to that art form? It's beautiful. I love stop motion animation, like feature length movies. Throw it in movies as special effects. It's great, but it's really, really difficult. And like his wings just kind of like flap up and down, like they're not doing. It's not.
He's not grabbing air. No.
It's not scientifically accurate.
And it's kind of like it's kind of like when you see Pegasus like flying, and just a little like.
So
legs.
As a kid, it would piss me off because Pegasus, the winged horse, would fly through the air, but as he's flying, his like legs are making like galloping motions.
Right.
And I would ask my sister, who's older than me, so she knew what was going on. I was like, Amy, why is Pegasus like galloping when he's flying? He's flying. His wings are just flapping. He doesn't need to move his legs. And she's like, if they didn't move his legs when he was flying, it would look like a toy.
Yeah,
true.
Like he would just be like stiff, or the legs would just be like.
It gives him motion.
It gives him motion.
Beyond
it gives
the
him
wings,
like dynamic motion that me as a kid, I'm just like, but it doesn't make sense. But her as like the 9-year-old, she's like explaining this.
She's like, let me break it down.
She
for
figured
you.
it out. Yeah. But that's just shit that like you wouldn't even think about. But these animators are kind of they're putting in all the legwork for us. We have barely talked about Burgess Meredith. I just kind of want to touch on him a little bit, just because he's kind of like really funny.
I mean, Burgess Meredith would have been coming off a big moment with the Rocky movies in the late 70s too.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I always I feel like my dad or my uncle was like, it's a penguin.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
The penguin.
My stepdad Don has this wild story that he claims that he smoked weed with Burgess Meredith and he started doing the penguin voice as they were doing it. I don't know if it's true.
Apocryphal.
But Don says that he got high with the penguin.
We're just going to pretend that's true.
Yeah.
I hope it's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're at Berkeley, maybe?
Probably.
Okay. I like it. Yeah, I think, is he kind of playing a similar role to his Rocky character? He's just...
yeah, he's not as gruff. I think he's a little bit more... He's very... he's the theater guy, right? Isn't he the one... Mm-hmm. He's the master of the theater and the drama, and he very reverent to the gods and their stories. He's a storyteller. Right. So I think he's the one that kind of connects Perseus to the lore and the gods, because he's so knowledgeable.
I think, are we to believe that like he's the one that's writing all this down?
Correct. Right. Exactly. It's his story.
I mean, if I would have been 11 years old and a big fan of the animated movie, this is the Danny DeVito character. This is that archetype of like that movie. And he would train
of Hercules.
And
Hercules.
he would train Hercules. Yeah. Okay. It's the Danny DeVito.
And Danny DeVito played the penguin.
Yep. Oh my God. Full circle moment.
Full circle moment. No, you're right. When he's kind of similar to that Phil.
In
the Hercules movie. All right. Man, Hercules is really good.
Hercules is good. It's a little, it's definitely at that time of, it's a little too tongue-in-cheek and like winky to its audience with pop culture references.
Oh,
but
sure.
the movie itself, I think, is pretty solid.
Okay.
Beautiful animation style, too.
All right. There's a character in this movie that's kind of like Perseus meets this like warrior army guy at some point. They just kind of like hit it off and have a conversation. Yeah.
In hindsight,
yeah.
he's kind of hot.
But he's just kind of thrown in there for Perseus to have somebody to talk to. And
yeah, he's like, it becomes a buddy film for a little bit. Yeah.
For a little bit.
A little bit.
There's moments when they go off to find Medusa and all that
and the
stuff.
Witches and everything.
And the witches.
Yeah.
And there's guards that come with it. He's in there, but he's in uniform, so you don't see him a lot, and then you see him again, and you kind of forget he comes in and out. But yeah, I was watching it, and I was like, all right, I like that.
He's a little dry too, isn't he? A little dry.
Yes, yeah.
Kind of remember that. Yeah.
But he's got like tight curly hair and like a beard. And you're like, okay, all right. I'm liking this guy. He's like the best friend character.
He holds his own.
Yes, absolutely. So the big not crutch, but the big kind of thing of the final moment or the final like arc of this movie is that Maggie Smith has doomed Andromeda to be put on the rock,
to be a skittle for Kraken,
to be a skittle for the Kraken. So the thing is, okay, how do we beat the Kraken? The Kraken's a Titan, so we got to figure that out. So we go to the witches
because they know all.
They know all.
They have the eye.
The witches are so much fun. I love that scene.
And the way that they've done this makeup on these women, just like covering their eye, they're not just like blind. They have no eyes.
They have nothing going on there.
They have no eyes. And they've got this like crystal ball, this like sphere, this orb that they use, and they put it up to their forehead, and they can see through it, and only one at a time, and all that.
Very Shakespearean.
Very much. That's Macbeth, right?
It is. Yes.
And this scene is so iconic as a kid. There's certain scenes that as kids, when this movie's on, parts of it we could just be playing, running around, drawing, doing whatever. But certain scenes would happen where we'd be like, okay, now we're focused.
Yeah.
And this was definitely one of them. Because they're in this cave, this hovel that they live in.
You always talk about on the Smurfs whenever the Smurfs would refer to Gargamel's hovel. This is kind of like the hovel that Gargamel lives in.
Yes, it's just an old...
It's a cave, isn't it?
It's a cave, yeah. It's just an old, gross cave with there's bones on the ground.
Cauldron, I know. What you would expect a witch's cave to look like.
You know.
What are they doing all day? I don't know.
Cooking,
just looking through the eye, seeing all things.
Chit-chatting.
They're awaiting
playing mahjong.
Do you know who's one of the voices of the witches in the animated movie is Amanda Plummer.
No. Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, okay. She plays a good witchy voice.
Yeah.
Perseus is kind of... Does he really need to be this antagonistic with them? Like, they kind of say, like, okay, we'll tell you what's up.
Sure. You could have just asked.
Yeah. But when... So he's... They eventually steal... Perseus steals the eye.
With the help of Bubo, right?
With the help of Bubo. Figures out, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to defeat this Titan? And they tell him.
Medusa.
Medusa can turn anything into stone, even a Titan.
Smart.
Great.
Smart.
Yeah. Perfect. Now I know what to do. And they're like, all right, we told you, give us the eye. And he's like, fucking go get it.
Yeah, he just throws
it.
And they're like, no.
Yeah, they flip out. Well, the thing is, when they cut to the shot at the end and they're like looking around, it's inches from their hands. So
right.
They'll find it.
They'll be okay.
But it's just kind of rude the way he's just like, here you go. It's a ball. It could have rolled anywhere.
So Medusa lives on an island in the river Styx, which is just on the edge of the underworld.
Correct.
I mean, the river Styx takes you to the underworld.
Mm-hmm. Is this a suburb?
Yeah, it's an island in the river.
Mm-hmm.
Sky, you gagged at the what's the guy's name who like the boatman to the river? It was full on like Halloween store. Like,
it was the spirit of Halloween.
It still creeped me out.
Yeah,
no, it kind of creeped me out as a kid. Though.
Yeah.
The way the reveal and you don't see his face, and then it turns at you. You're like, oh, yeah, okay,
yes. Yeah.
And the coin and the creaking and all that stuff.
Yeah. Effective.
Effective.
But also like all that stuff that's very like Greek mythology that as a kid you're just like, oh, okay, you've got to pay the toll to the boatman and he takes you across the river and the whole concept of the underworld and all that. And it's just so like foreign, I guess, that you know, as kids you're just like, it's just so fascinating. And yeah, throw in skeletons and witches and Medusas and, you know, gold. It's a party. I do love that when they get there is a multi-headed dog.
Yeah, just for fun.
But
2 heads.
It only has 2
because
heads.
I think that is the multi-head... what's the dog?
Cerberus.
How many heads?
We're talking the original dog from hell. You mean Cerberus?
Yeah.
Cerberus has 3.
3?
Heads.
Okay.
Yes.
I couldn't remember if it's 3 or 4.
No, Cerberus has 3 heads historically.
Budget cuts.
And it is budget cuts, and it is Ray Harryhausen saying, I'm not doing 3 heads.
There is not.
I'll give you 2.
There is not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, best I could do is 2 heads. And I also like that it's kind of like a wolf-looking dog.
It's very wolfy.
Yeah. I mean, in Harry Potter and in Hercules, it's more like Rottweiler kind of dogs that they use. And in this one, they're very like wolf-looking.
It's like wild beast.
Yeah. But they do a really cool thing when Perseus like kills one of the heads and then it just hangs there.
Yeah, and the other one's like.
Yeah, and the other one's still alive. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But Medusa's Island is amazing because it's like covered in statues of like all these men who like, return to stone. So good.
And we know that I'm assuming the audience knows the backstory of her. She was a beautiful maiden that did something to piss off Aphrodite, and Aphrodite punished her by making her a hideous creature that can turn men to stone.
Yes.
By looking into their eyes.
I'm trying to remember who on Top Model had to do a Medusa.
Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember. Who? Which fashion is it? Is it?
It's Versace.
Versace has a Medusa, but it's not like it doesn't have snakes.
It does.
Does it?
Well,
okay.
Yeah, it does. I mean, not as elaborate, maybe, but yeah, it's there.
I always just look like hair to me.
Oh, maybe I'm just making that up. That maybe they
Top model thing?
Maybe they didn't have a fashion shoot with somebody dressed up as Medusa.
Maybe you're thinking of the one where they were in Greece and they had them do a shoot inside of a giant Greek
the salad bowl, and Allison's like big eyes couldn't open up all the way just because it was so bright.
She didn't get a little vinegar and oil in there.
Anyways, top model tangent. Yep.
Okay, so this puppet, this model of
I love her.
Is fucking amazing. Like, this shit is so cool. Like, I feel like it took a couple of viewings for me maybe to realize that, like, yeah, it's like she's like a snake.
Terrifying.
Like and she like is like using her arms to like pull herself across the room. Like,
she is jacked.
Yeah, she's pretty ripped.
Yeah, she's ripped. She's strong. She is ugly.
She's ugly.
I hate when I do a Google search for Medusa Clash of the Titans. It's the 2010 one, which is a CGI mess.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a missed opportunity of that, like, you can get a 2010 supermodel to be Medusa, and that's the best that you got. I mean,
too
not
pretty. Like they kind of made her pretty.
Yeah.
Until she like gets they make her scary at certain points. But like this one was hideous. She was not. She is a monster, regardless of like what she can do. She's scary before you even look in her eyes.
Right. Right.
The snakes, and they're all just moving the entire time. The rattle she has, and the texture of her skin. She's kind of like a bluish gray color. I mean, she's
got scales all up her body, her arms, her face, like all of it. She's got her like bow and arrow that she's like.
Oh, the bow and arrow. That's right. Yeah, she's not fucking around.
She's like super fierce with this bow and arrow, just like shoot. She would like shoot these guys like from behind, so they would turn around and then turn them to stone.
Yeah,
like she knew exactly how to get to everybody. It's so fucking cool.
So good.
Yeah. And then they do this thing where Perseus uses his shield and you think it's going to be like, oh, the reflection, but like he doesn't see her through the reflection. He uses it so she can see him.
She thinks it's him.
And she thinks it's him.
So she goes after him and then she's off guard. She gets herself off guard. Yeah.
Oh, and then also her blood is poison. And so one of the goddesses like imbued his cloak so that he can wrap up her bloodied head.
Right. So he puts it in there and
it won't like disintegrate.
But the shield is toast.
No, the shield is gone. Yeah. Toast. It is like melting.
He's losing all his little pieces along the way. Yeah. Still got the sword.
Yeah. But we kind of talked about it, but he chops the head off. And the body's like flailing around, the tail's like flipping and flopping, and like headless and all gross.
I mean, it's like cutting the head off of a snake,
right? Yeah. I mean, if you, I don't know.
Yeah,
gross.
Little like nerves, like the body is still moving.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, but they do this thing where like all of this like blood oozes out of her neck, and I mean, I think they're doing it because they told us it's poison, but it's like thick and
it's tomato sauce,
viscous, and it looks like tomato sauce. So
as
gross.
a kid, you're just like,
we loved it. We were just screaming
applause.
Yeah. And he just like wraps it in his like in this cloak.
And he can't look at it, so he has to like he's been through it. He is sweating. He is just exhausted.
Yeah,
all his men have died.
I was gonna say he's like losing dudes left and right
everywhere. So he grabs the. And it's funny because even as a kid I noticed how different the head looks.
Sure.
When it's not, because it becomes a prop then.
Right.
It's not a puppet. I don't. It's not the stop motion animation.
Yeah.
And so it looks different than the one that Ray created.
Right. And it's the thing that now that it's a prop in his hands, like now the snakes are just kind of like. Argh.
Well, it's kind of interesting that it's still a piece of animation when Harry is holding it.
There's a one moment,
like the big shot at the end when he takes it out with the Kraken.
Yeah, but the other moments it's not. It's like this kind of fake head that they got.
Yes. Okay, so and I always forget too that the scorpions are after this.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like
there's more
Medusa's blood that like turns them into like these giant
Calabas is still around. He's still around, and he shows up.
I mean, he chopped off his hand. He's
pissed.
He means business now.
So now he's coming for Medusa. What does he do? He pokes the bag, and then the blood starts coming out, and then this turns into scorpions, and that kills more dudes.
Yeah.
And then I think we finally lose him. He's finally toast after this.
Yeah, I think it's during the scorpion fight that we get rid of
Perseus is done
finally.
Yeah.
And he lets their horses go. Yeah. Like he's just like agent of chaos.
Yeah.
He's just like running around fucking up everything. And he's got like this trident like jammed into his like stump.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
So he's got like this gross like hand like prosthetic thing going on. And it's really disgusting as he like stabs the like the hanging like head in the bag. But the fights with the scorpions, all this shit where it's live action and stop motion together in these shots, they look so cool.
Epic.
Like,
yeah. I mean, there's reasons why directors like Tim Burton and James Cameron, it's just like they all grew up on these movies. So it's like when you watch something like Alice in Wonderland from 2010, there's like a direct homage to the skeletons in Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah.
So it's like all of these directors just like put little pieces of Ray's work in all of their big Hollywood blockbusters just because those are the movies that they grew up with. I mean, this guy pretty much inspired an entire generation of filmmakers. And I think that's pretty cool.
It's very cool.
You could almost say that he's one of the most like influential figures
in
in
special
Hollywood.
effects.
In special effects, yeah.
100%.
At least in special effects, yeah. I mean, in The Mummy, there's scenes where Brendan Fraser is fighting a bunch of skeletons. They're all CG skeletons, but still, it's like they're direct references to these movies. There's a fight in Attack of the Clones in Star Wars Episode 2, where Ewan McGregor is fighting like a big like multi-legged creature, and the way it's blocked and the way it's shot, it's Perseus fighting the scorpions. It's exactly this scene, like the way and the creature has like a big like tail. It's crazy. It's crazy the way they did it. I mean, it's a CGI creature that Ewan McGregor is fighting, but the way that they've done it, it's like a 1-to-1 comparison. It's really cool. And the scorpions in this are like pretty like anatomically correct scorpions. Like they're like, because scorpions are fucking disgusting.
They're just giant scorpions.
They're so bad. They're gross. Like they've got they're arachnids, so they've got 8 legs and they've got this tail, but they've got this thing like their mouths where we would think like their mouth is. There's also like little weird like claws down there. They're really gross when you look at them up close. And the way that they've created these, these creatures,
supersized scorpions.
Yeah, they're pretty accurate as far as like actual anatomy of these scorpions and how like disgusting they are.
Yeah.
So and they didn't have to go that far. You know what I mean? They could fudge it and be like, oh, you won't notice like these little.
It's probably
things.
all right.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. All right. This Kraken.
Release the Kraken.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. That has become a phrase that people just say now,
Absolutely.
like whenever, you know.
Yeah, well,
letting it go.
I think the remake, they were really leaning into that line.
I think that's like the tagline of the remake.
It's a tagline of the remake. It was in all the TV spots. It's Liam Neeson just like shouting it in that like gruff Liam Neeson voice. So I think that the remake has a little bit to do with that, but it is very much part of
I know
like,
so many people
culture.
that probably never saw that remake that today
that still say
will always say, release the Kraken, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do they actually say release the Kraken in this movie?
He does.
He does? Okay. I was wondering if it's just one of those things that you assume that he says it, but he doesn't actually say it.
No, he says it. He says it.
Okay.
He says it like twice, I think. He says it a couple times. But okay, so first of all, this Kraken has
a really nice body.
I was gonna say
a really great
abs.
physique.
He's
I don't know.
abs. Yeah,
abs.
He's got a strong core.
Yeah,
like he's doing some underwater.
Not great
like,
looking,
no,
but his body's pretty hot.
Butterface.
Yeah, a little butterface. But
he's got 4 arms. First of all, he's got like his chest built, abs slamming, belly button.
Interesting.
Belly button indicates placental mammal.
Sure. Yep.
A belly button indicates that you are a placental mammal.
I guess we don't know.
But, he is a creature of myth and legend. So, whatever.
I love those shots of who is it underwater? Who's the guy underwater?
Poseidon.
Okay, so it is Poseidon.
It is merciful Poseidon.
He's always underwater.
He's kind of
out.
clunky shots of this older guy underwater.
Pulling levers.
Yeah. Is it a dry for wet situation where they're just blowing a fan on him and running it in slow motion?
Possibly.
Question.
And then they have like these like particles like floating over him, so it looks like it's.
He always has this look of awe. He's always
he really does,
wide-eyed, and his mouth's open, the hair's flowing.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh shit, here it comes."
Yeah, but then there's shots at the beginning of the Kraken coming out when it destroys Argos at the very beginning, and all we see is the tail because they don't want to blow their wad and show us the Kraken until the very end.
Smart.
So all we see is the tail. So this creature with 4 arms, jacked shoulders, abs, no legs.
No legs.
So it's holding itself up. So it does have a strong core because it's like flipping that fin and holding itself straight up out of the water. So, good for the Kraken. But yeah, we when we first saw that tail flipping out of that cave, Scott was like, "What is that?
What is this? What am I looking at?"
I'm like, it's the Kraken's tail. Leave him alone. Also, creature from the Black Lagoon face.
A little creature from the Black Lagoon.
Very much.
Very that.
Yeah. But so now the Kraken's released.
Andromeda's on the rock.
Andromeda's on the rocks, flipping and flopping, just like hanging there.
Cassiopeia's like, oh shit, where's Perseus?
Yeah, they're all just gonna watch him.
Back up a little bit about Andromeda.
Sure.
I appreciate that they try to kind of do a girl boss angle, and then I think that they kind of quickly forget it.
Oh, because
she goes with them.
She goes with them.
right.
Yeah.
I kind of like that they gave that actress a little more something to do.
Yeah.
She's on the horse. She's like leading the charge at one point. You're right.
Yeah,
really
and
did.
I forget about that every time. That
She wasn't
does.
just this like, I'm a victim. She's
Right.
like, no, she's like wants to be part of it, but then they send her home. I forget why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Medusa. I think was that the last straw. She doesn't get to go to cross the
so.
river Styx or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's there for like a good part of the journey. So which you're right, and I do forget about that. Yeah.
They let her kind of do a little Princess Leia
Yeah.
with that character. Yeah.
Sure. But yeah, there's this final like battle, I guess, of the Kraken just kind of standing around.
He's just kind of looking at her. He's like, do I want to eat this?
Yeah.
Do I not want to eat this?
I mean, I'm assuming
kind of pretty.
he has like orders.
Yeah, he's like,
maybe because he's not destroying any cities.
No.
It's just like eat that little
is
lady.
the Kraken just like in his cage all day?
Yeah, he's just hanging in there.
I mean, I guess he's glad to be out.
Yeah. But that was my thing too. I'm like, how come like when they open that gate, he's not just like peace?
Yeah, right.
Like,
He
I'm going
swims
to
away.
China.
Yep.
It's like, I quit.
Yeah, I'm out.
No, he goes back into his cage.
Yeah, he just goes back
He's
to the cage
obedient.
afterwards.
But he's checking her out. He's like, not sure what to
Yeah.
do. There's a little bit of a pause, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah. Perseus comes in on Pegasus from like across the plains or whatever. I found it really funny this time that the Kraken just kind of like swatted him out of the sky.
Yeah,
he's like,
Swats him away. Yep.
Away with you, and they fall into the water. Pegasus, we feel like looks like he drowns. Like
Yeah.
that was crazy. I was like, oh no. I forget certain things when I watch this movie. There's a lot going on.
he becomes sentimentally
You see that?
attached.
You see that shot of
Yeah.
Bubo getting like
He gets swiped.
he gets
Oh,
swiped
yeah.
up and he crashes on the rocks.
Crashed on the rocks, like all that stuff.
And then they all come back and to help Perseus at the end.
Yeah, because Perseus falls in the water and loses Medusa's head.
Oh, shit.
Oh, Christ. Now what are we going to do?
All that work.
She doesn't sink to the bottom, thankfully.
Yeah.
I always remember Andromeda's tied to the rock and Perseus showing the Medusa head. I remember it being like higher, like on a cliff.
He gets
Sure.
up on something.
They're kind of like at, I don't know, like sea level.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really like precariously like way up. It's just like on rocks that are like, just right at the ocean. We were kind of wondering like where all this was shot because I think that there's like this outcropping that they're on that's like this archway. And I think that's
it's Malta.
Is that Malta?
Yeah. So I was reading at the opening shots where they're putting the baby in the little box. That is in England.
Oh.
That is, I believe, it's some coastline in England that they really had to wait for the weather to be just right to get all of those waves.
Okay.
They shot some of it in Spain with those crazy rocks.
Right.
We're in Spain, and I believe that all of this stuff is in Malta.
Okay. All the
Yep.
beach, that beach stuff. All right, that makes sense. We always thought it was funny as kids that when the Kraken does turn to stone, it just explodes. It just kind of like falls apart.
He gives this kind of like, no. And then all of a sudden he just splits in a million pieces. And
Maybe just he's so big and so heavy that it just
somehow doesn't cause a tsunami and take out everybody else. Another town,
These
but okay.
giant rocks just fall on Andromeda.
And everyone's like, yay.
crush her.
Yeah, seriously. Oops.
All that work.
Should have thought this out a little better.
Yeah. Maybe it's just he's so big and heavy that it just can't support its own weight, so it just cracks and falls into the ocean.
Right.
I guess.
And then he throws Medusa's head into the ocean, and out comes
Pegasus. But
Out comes Pegasus, yep.
that kind of somewhat, I think that was on purpose because I think
in the myth.
that's
Doesn't
how
the horse
Pegasus,
come out of Medusa? Right?
Yeah, I was going to
That's
say
how
the
Pegasus
horse
was actually
somehow comes out of Medusa.
created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a nod to that.
Yeah.
Origin
a little
story.
nod. Yeah. And everyone lives happily ever after.
Yeah, there's a big wedding,
Oh yeah, we get it.
and then the stars are
The gods
claiming-
Oh.
predict that Perseus and Andromeda will live happily will live happily, rule wisely, and produce children, men, boys.
Yes.
Yep.
Does it say men and boys?
No, I think it says. I think it says will produce like men.
Men. Oh,
Yeah, not a daughter.
Work.
Yep.
So I remember in school just learning briefly about like Greek mythology, and maybe it was a science teacher talking to us about astronomy and talking to us about constellations. Mm-hmm. And she said Cassiopeia, and she's like, you could really see Cassiopeia, like clear nights. She's a really easy one to kind of find.
You're like, Cassio, what?
Yeah, no, and I'm sitting in class going, like Clash of the Titans.
I know, totally. Like holding the mirror, vain Cassiopeia. That's vain Cassiopeia.
Yeah, I was like, I know where that's from.
That's funny. Okay, so I'm having a flashback of when I was in drama class when I was a senior in high school. Mm-hmm. We did a Greek myths play, and I was a stag used car salesman that is selling Hercules the Fleece.
Ooh. Word.
Yeah, so I mean, it was kind of like tongue in cheek.
That's a layered role.
Yeah,
it was like tongue in cheek.
Yeah,
that we're doing all of these weird interpretations of these characters, and I just remembered that I was a stag used car salesman.
Okay.
Yep.
I think the very first constellation I ever remember seeing was Orion.
I'm still terrible about
seeing
constellations. Like I still can't get it.
You have to use your imagination.
Yeah,
they're not. And also, unless you're out in the maybe you.
I grew up looking at the stars.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was always terrible at.
But that was your
I was always terrible at it. Yep.
Maybe it's harder because there's more. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Out here, all you can see is Orion's belt.
I could see the Big and Little Dipper, and that was it.
Sure. And the Big Dipper is like only half of like its actual constellation.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's the bear. Can't think of the bears. How you say a bear? And yeah, fuck. Now I'm not gonna remember it. Oh well. I used to be really good at it when I worked at the Children's Science Museum for 7 years. I did actually.
Ursula Minor.
Ursula.
Yeah. I have Ursula Andress on the brain.
Yeah,
Ursa Minor. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Ursa Minor is the Little Dipper. Ursa Major is the Big Dipper, and Ursa Major, the part that you see that's like the spoon, is only like part of it, and there's like a whole bottom part. Yeah, and it's like a sitting like bear. It's a
and which
thing.
one? And which one is Beetlejuice?
Beetlejuice is a star in Orion. I want to say it's a shoulder. And Bellatrix is one of the 3 stars in Orion's belt.
I just know all these from like pop culture references.
Yeah. That's it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
There's apps for that. Mm-hmm. Just download an app and like point it in the sky. You can figure it all out. But I was fascinated by it as a kid. And then at the Children's Museum that I worked at, I worked on we had this inflatable planetarium situation where there was like a little projector inside that would project the stars onto the dome, and it was like accurate like star formations. And so I wrote a program on that. I'm not going to remember which constellations I wrote. I think I did Scorpio, and I did a few. Yeah, I wrote a little program. It was like a little 15-minute presentation to the kids, and I had like a laser pointer, and here you can see this one, and the whole story about like Zeus, and gosh, now I don't remember which constellations I did. I'll figure it out. We'll add it to the Patreon or something. But yeah, that scene at the end where they show the constellations, you're like, is that what they look like? No.
Yeah. It's a lot of stars in the sky.
There was way too many in those constellations in the closing credits. But yeah, I mean, I saw the sequel, not the sequel, the remake.
The remake. Missed opportunity, I'll say. That I think that you could have done some cool things with it. And this was also like the post-Avatar 3D wave of like the early 2010s, but yeah.
Where everything was in 3D?
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't appeal to me. I looked at the things.
Ugly
it looked like
looking.
a video game.
It's ugly looking.
It did. It
looked like a video game.
It looked like a video
and I was like, this doesn't have the heart or the soul that I feel like this movie has.
Right.
You know, it does. I don't know, the acting and the characters and the layers. You can't recreate. I mean, you could recreate it, but they just didn't do it. That's okay.
Yeah. I think it would take a certain kind of group of filmmakers that were kind of wanting to use these techniques that are, and maybe outdated
Different
or
type of
archaic
nerds,
or whatever.
yeah.
But yeah,
different type
and
of nerd.
and there's a way to do it. I think there's a way that you can make a modern movie and say, okay, we're going to use some, practical things. We're going to use some on set kind of like puppetry or whatever.
Well, aren't they
to
leading
make it
all
work.
of the stuff for Beetlejuice that a lot of it is practical?
So that's
If you can, if you take that.
I mean, there's always
take that with a grain of salt.
There's always been a huge CGI backlash, right? But I think the last few years, it's been really like, we hate CGI. And there's a big push right now for people like, Tom Cruise, to say like, well, in the Top Gun sequel, like, there's no CGI, which is a lie. There's a ton of CGI in the Top Gun sequel, but to push to market your movie by saying like, we did a lot
of stuff in camera, and I know that using the word in camera is a pretty broad term
or practical effects
for visual effects.
Right?
Yeah,
practical effects, a very broad term, but I mean, it gets people excited, right? Because people have this idea of like, I don't like CGI, it's soulless, whatever. And to an extent, when you see something like the Clash of the Titans sequel, it reeks of like, this just looks like God of War. This looks like a video game, and it's not what I want to see, But now it's getting to the point where filmmakers are saying there is no CGI in this movie, which I think is a stretch.
It was a big talking point with Barbie. I know.
Right.
That I think that they led in the press that they did a lot of it in camera.
And they did.
I
think they did. But they did use a fair amount of kind of this invisible CGI, right? Extensions, making Barbie Land look bigger than it really was, which is fine. Because they were able to kind of strike a balance.
Yeah.
Right? So we'll see what happens with the Beetlejuice sequel. I know that a lot of, right now we're hearing a lot of buzz about, it being as quote unquote practical as the first one, and
fun,
all practical effects. I'm excited.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers
We'll
crossed.
see. Labor Day weekend.
Yay.
I mean, we have a lot to say of, when movies do this thing where they have a character, and then you're like, and this is that character as a child, and they have the exact same haircut. You're like, really? They've been wearing their hair the same for 35 years, but now they're doing it kind of in reverse, where Winona Ryder is here and she's Lydia Dietz and she's got the same hair. And Lydia Dietz, who ostensibly is like this cool, avant-garde, cutting-edge teenager, just decided in 1988.
She's still stuck in 1988. Yeah.
This is the look.
This is it. I found my look.
I found my look, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I mean, look at like our grandparents. They they found their silhouette in like the 60s.
Frozen in time.
And they wore it until the day that they died.
But
Yep.
No. I don't know. Well, it's a little updated, but we're excited for Beetlejuice.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
How could you not be?
Yeah. But all right. Well, getting back to Clash of the Titans, this is a movie that sometimes was on and off streaming for a while. You could find it on Amazon Prime. It would be here.
It's on
there.
HBO sometimes
It's on
too.
HBO every now and then. Right now, unfortunately, it is not.
I just bought it.
We just bought it. It was cheap.
Yeah.
It was like $12.
Mm-hmm.
That's what?
I
3 days at
I think
Starbucks.
we'll wear out this digital copy
It's
of it.
always a good idea.
Yeah, because that's the thing. We were like, well, we'll just buy it
It would
because
be
we
fun
gotta
to-
like.
It's fun.
No, we're gonna watch it.
It would be fun to have
So much fun
It would
to
be fun to
watch.
have a 4K transfer of this movie, but I don't know how much better a 4K transfer of a movie like this from 1981 could possibly look.
No, the
Yep.
HD version that we got from iTunes looks really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's gonna be one that's gonna be in heavy rotation. in
Yeah,
this
I do
house.
kind of think about the reception of this movie that it took until just basic cable showings of this movie later after its release to really catch on with an audience, because I think it made okay money at the time. I mean, I just saw 11th movie at the box office, but it was also going up against stuff like Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
So I think that Lucasfilm just kind of gooped them.
Yeah.
That like this is kind of the direction that we're going to be taking genre movies like this.
But it found its home on home video and cable.
Yeah.
Showing cable airings, because that's where we all watched it and fell in love with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like we were saying, it's violent, but it's very stylized. It's very like
it's pretty tame.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, I wouldn't show this to children. We were
No,
kids.
I would let kids watch it.
Yeah,
of course,
absolutely.
My mom had no problem. Letting me watch it. And what was I, all of like 7? You know, so 8.
Yeah.
Sure,
absolutely, yeah. So if you can't find it, rent it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a $3 rental. It's a $12 purchase.
Darren, you just kind of remind me of that. Do kids now just never know the rush of like being yelled like Clash of the Titans is on right now? Get your ass in the living room. It's on.
It's a shame if they don't.
We can't rewind all of this. If you're lucky and you really planned ahead, you could have your tape it.
Yeah.
Like you could tape it.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is one we never taped. I don't know why we didn't. I think it was just special when it came on, and we just loved it. And it really planted a seed in me about history and you know, before Wikipedia, when I can go on and, you know, and get all the scoop on everything. It's like I had to go to books. You know, I had to do research. And luckily my family had, you know, some books that I can go into and learn more about these myths. And I get to go to Greece this summer for the first time.
Oh, that's fun.
I know. And I really want to do a little deep dive into as much mythology there as I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll be fun.
That's amazing. Yeah, but same. I feel like as kids we had that whole like, if you had a set of encyclopedias, you can kind of go and do your own little research and all of that.
And the encyclopedias were so great.
Yeah, so cool. So cool. But Scott, you're right though. There was that thing where like if a movie was on and there was commercials, it'd be like, I'm gonna go get some crackers. My sister just like, it's on,
just yelling, just hopping over the couch.
Making our way back. Yeah, I have a ton of great memories watching this movie. And the same thing, we taped everything, and I don't think we taped this. Just never had a blank one on hand when it would come on.
Yeah,
but that was another thing too. It was just like things just came on, you know. Like we had TV Guide, but we were never like looking to see like what's going to be on this Saturday afternoon. So when we're home, it was just like we turn on the TV, what was on, the whatever channels we had, you know.
That's when it really came in handy if you had a grandparent that subscribed to TV Guide, and would comb through that, and had like little Scott in mind. Yep.
I always was fascinated with the descriptions in the TV Guide of like the movies and the TV shows, and I was like, is this a job or is it like they get these descriptions from like the movie studios?
But I was like, they probably had someone writing.
I think it was a job because they were like specific.
It was a staff job.
Yeah,
because it was not freelance.
And it was
staff.
Every episode of every TV show had a little 2 or 3 sentences, and I was just like, if this is a job, that is the coolest fucking job ever. But my grandma had the TV Guide, and it was great. But we didn't always comb through. We just were like, okay, what's the Family Film Festival movie this weekend?
Right.
And,
who did you say hosted the Family Film Festival?
I forget his name. I have to look.
Oh yeah, the Popeye guy.
Yes, he would draw, right?
He would draw. He would draw. I forget his name too.
Yeah.
He was a staple on Channel 5.
On Channel 5. And the Family Film Festival logo was a film strip.
Yep.
And it would spell out Family Film Festival
Totally
out
remember
of film.
It. There was a little music.
Yeah.
Totally remember this.
Yeah. Yeah, he was an older guy, and he had probably been with KTLA like since.
He used to draw Popeye.
Forever. Yeah, and he would draw.
He'd draw Popeye. Like he did the Popeye cartoons, which was like kind of a separate thing he did in the morning.
Okay.
There he is.
Yeah.
What's his name? Tom Hatton.
Tom Hatton. Yeah, that's it. That's him. Oh my gosh. Yeah. LA locals listeners, if you remember
Tom Hatton.
the Family Film Festival on KTLA.
Such a familiar face. That voice, I can hear his voice too.
Yep. We'll find him on YouTube.
So cool.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Darren.
Yeah, Darren,
my pleasure. I love
It's been a while. It's been a while since we've had you on.
Yeah, I think we did cabaret. We did. I mean, we've done Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Like all
I
my
was
faves.
okay. So I was remembering because it's just like we just hit the 4-year anniversary of the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember your Bedknobs and Broomsticks was like the week after all that shit went down.
That's right, because we did it. We tried doing a remote.
I remember it's
we
I just had you on the schedule, and I'm just like, well, do I cancel it?
We'll just do a FaceTime call.
Do I postpone it and wait this out? Yeah. I guess that we'll just do a FaceTime call.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember that was like the week after all the shit went down. We talked about bed knobs and broomsticks. Yep.
Hey,
it's a comfort food.
Yeah.
All of those 2020 episodes it was dark times of when listeners go back and re-listen to us talk about
check the original air dates when you're
talk about
to the
certain
back
movies
catalog.
and you get a certain context of what's going on.
Yeah. Oh man.
It's so thrilled for you guys. You're still going. You're doing your thing.
Yes.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like we're still just freshly back from our break because we took our end of year break, and so getting back into the swing of things. But yeah, we're still going strong. So thanks for coming back, and we'll have you on for anything else we can think of. Yeah. Thanks so much, man.
You got it.
Until next time.
Listeners, thank you once again for sticking around all the way through to the end of the episode. You made it. We hope you enjoyed this one. Clash of the Titans, great movie. We love it so much. And thank you so much for listening. And thanks, Darren, for being a great guest, as always. But I think it's about that time for some Patreon shout-outs. We get to say hey, hello to all of our wonderful active patrons over at patreon.com, including our friends Erica, Anna, Mitchie, Courtney, Christina, our friends at the How Do You Drew podcast, Andy, Kate, Pep, Tammy, Roberto, Brett, Daisy, Kelly, Chrissy, Steven, Desiree, Laura, Thomas, Lori, Brenna, Jessa Rabbit, Lawrence, Lisa, Alexis, Thomas, Millie, Ted, Benny, Melanie, Susan, JJ, Shelby, Paul, Jamie, Drew, Genevieve, Dawn, Joshua, Aaron, Nick and Shannon, Christine, and Rufino. You guys, thank you so much for being patrons. It's so awesome that you have been supporting us all this time. And, all of our support and all the donations go directly to keeping this show up and running and ad-free every week. So check us out at patreon.com/moviesthatmadeusgay for all of the supplemental and bonus features, including at the $5 level, we have our brand new Television That Made Us Gay series. And at the $10 level, our Watch Others commentaries, plus tons more. So check us out over on patreon.com/moviesthatmadeusgay. You can follow our socials. We're at Movies That Made Us Gay on Instagram. We're most active on that one. And give us a follow, give us a like, repost, share. All that interaction really helps out for the show to get, some wider recognition. So check it out. You can also leave us a 5-star rating if you follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, you can write a review. Even if you don't listen on Apple Podcasts, if you're a Spotify or whatever type of person, you still have Apple Podcasts on your phone. It's pre-installed. So just open it up, search our page, write us a review. We love it. It helps. Thank you so much. You can follow our personals if you'd like. Mine, my socials are I'm at Peter Lasagna on Instagram, and Scott is at Scott Youngballer on Instagram. We are both on Twitter, X, but we hardly ever post there. But Scott is on Letterboxd. Follow his Letterboxd and all of his reviews. I usually see the same movies that he does, so he's got the one Letterboxd, and I just kind of clap and like all of his posts. Do you like posts on Letterboxd? Who knows? But thank you so much once again for listening. We will see you next week, everyone. Bye.